The purpose of today is to look at the how international experience on monitoring evaluation can apply to the Irish Action Plan, but also, as importantly, just to hear the international learning on the development of this process. People we have on the platform have just enormous experience both in setting standards, breaking ground and getting things done, both at intellectual and practical level. That's Margot, that's Mary, that's Charlotte, but also in terms of the link between the international foreign policy aspect of governments and the domestic policy application is extremely, and I'm delighted that Mary White is here today to do that, and Susan will be here as well. And that discourse is extremely important if we are to make change on the ground and recognise that countries take their responsibilities not just externally but internally, and how to link the two. So on that basis, I'm going to introduce the speakers as we go along. We're delighted that Brendan has been able to come in the maelstrom of what is the current government discussions, and he'll be talking about the role of parliamentarians in creating accountability mechanisms. So we're delighted he could make time to come, as well as Mary. Now, may I ask Colin McGorner, who chairs the Gender-Based Violence Consortium and is Director of Amnesty, could he perhaps open this?
Thank you, Inez. I'm going to be very brief indeed, because I think Inez has set out what the purpose of today's meetings are. First of all, thank you all very much indeed for coming, and as Chair of the Consortium, I'm delighted to welcome you along. Today is very much focused on discussion and on achieving real outcomes from this meeting, ensuring success, monitoring and evaluation of Ireland's National Action Plan on UNSCR 1325. This will feed into another session this afternoon that's part of the consultation process in the development of Ireland's National Action Plan. Minister, member of the Oireachtas, colleagues and friends, I'm delighted that you're here. We've a lot to get through, so I'm going to get quiet, sit down and listen and learn as much as I possibly can as well, and hand you over to Inez. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Colin. I'd like to ask Margot, because she's going to place our work in an international aspect, and probably I think nobody better to give us some teaching and learning on how to take our next steps. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe I'll stand. Thank you. 10 minutes? 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. We will have the pictures as well. That's nice. Dear friends, thank you very much. And thank you very much to Mary and to all Marys. I understand almost everybody is named Mary. All Marys that I've met. Thank you for inviting me, for having me here. And where do I start? Maybe by saying that I'm definitely the first on this post that was introduced through a Security Council resolution last year. And this stems 10 years from 10 years back, when Resolution 1325 was adopted, saying that women have a role in ensuring peace, and in the context of women, peace and security, we ought to look at this particular issue of how sexual violence is being used as a weapon of war, or a tactic of war, and sometimes a consequence of war. And so last year, with this resolution, my post was established, and I've started in April after leaving the European Commission. And I tried to set very quickly an agenda. I said that there are 5 things important to be able to measure success. First, if we are able to end impunity, because as it is now, Women walk in shame while the perpetrators walk free. And there is almost total amnesty for this type of crimes. Secondly, how to empower women, because this has to be seen in that context of giving women a voice, giving them influence and power. That's the only way we can change also the attitude towards women, the role in society. And we have to help them also when they are survivors of sexual violence. The third task for me is to create also political ownership of this issue, because it's not a women's issue. It's a human rights issue. This is not cultural. It is not even sexual. It is criminal. It's an internationally recognized crime, and that's how we have to tackle it as well. And the fourth issue has to do with deepen our knowledge about this phenomenon, to understand how this is being used. And actually next week it will be 15 years ago since the Dayton Agreement, ending the war in the Balkans. And you know that we had pure rape camps in the Balkans where it was used for ethnic cleansing. So sometimes this is the way rape is being used. Other times, you know, for achieving political or military or economic goals. And that's why we have to understand, how does peer pressure work? How does the chain of command work in the military systems when it comes to using this as a weapon of war? And the fifth issue, of course, has to do with harmonizing everything we do internally in the UN system. We have, and I'm fortunate to be able to base my work on an already existing network of 13 UN entities that work together called UN Action Against Sexual Violence. So these 5 points are my political agenda. My ultimate goal is to make sure that the UN, the Security Council, is willing to use all the tools they have in their toolbox, including sanctions, including asset freeze and visa bans and naming and shaming and listing of the perpetrators, to send a signal also from the international community that this is not acceptable, this has to stop. The pictures that you see are from my last visit to, and my second visit to the DRC. And you remember that at the end of last summer, we got terrible reports about atrocities in the North Kivu, in the eastern parts of the DRC, where hundreds and hundreds of rapes were carried out during a few days while by armed groups, rebel groups, moving in the Walikale territory. No killings happened this time, but actually this was very well planned and systematic attack on 15 villages, as a matter of fact. So what we've heard, we had more than 300 rapes reported to begin with, but we see that there are many, many more. And also men and boys were attacked and raped. And we went back to visit these villages and talk to the women. To me, what is worst is the older women. And this old lady who said to me, well, I try to say to them, don't touch me, you could leave me alone because you could be my grandchildren. And she was in her 70s. And I think they have suffered already. And they told us, we are tired. We are tired of being the ones who carry everything. We carry the children. We carry water. We carry firewood. We carry produce. We carry everything also for our husbands. And now we carry the shame of having been raped. We are the ones with the burden of shame, and very often rejected by their families when these things occur. And we just cannot take it any longer. This is enough is enough. And we know that they are so important to the Congolese society, to any society. So why should this be done to them? And what is it that we cannot stop these rapes and this sexual violence being carried out? And of course, this is also what you are going to discuss in your national action plan. How can we link what happens here in all our societies when it comes to violence against women? How can we link it and understand it in a bigger context, and how can we make sure that we act also in an external policy, in our aid policy, in a way that is consistent and that covers also how to empower women, to protect them, to support them. I was happy that the Security Council then wanted me to come back and report to them on these visits, and also with a number of recommendations. How can we make sure that our peacekeepers can interpret early warning signals, that they can act in such a way that they can prevent it? How can we make sure that there is security sector reform? Because the risk was, and I warned against this happening also, that now they deploy national army soldiers there instead, without enough to eat, without pay, without any garrisons, and they will start to live off the population. So from one man in uniform abusing these women, there will be another group of soldiers with the risk of looting and pillaging and rapes again. So Congo needs to carry out security sector reform as well, to make sure that the justice can be found also for these women. And I think that this is now a strength that the Security Council has decided to take it on, that this is placed on top of their agenda. They see that when this is done, it is such a heavy impediment to creating any kind of peaceful development. And in a country like Liberia, that also Mary and others here know very, very well, this is still a very high cost, a very heavy burden on the society, and the rapes that they saw introduced through war actually has now become a part of their everyday lives. Rape is still the #1 reported crime in Liberia. And of course, a whole generation of those that were child soldiers during the war and had to do the most horrific crimes and have not received counseling or help or therapy are now supposed to build and work in a peaceful society. So what was a way of war has become a way of life. And we have to change that. We have to stop rape now. We have to mobilize both men and women. We have to mobilize all our judicial and political systems in order to combat sexual violence. And we have to do it hand in hand, both men and women, and we have to do it at all levels. And I will do everything I can to try to contribute to that. I think that it's a fantastic thing that you have a national plan being worked out, action plan being worked out. I think this will definitely, I hope, be part of that plan. And I think Ireland can also play a role in pushing for this against other EU member states. And I hope, I spoke to the minister yesterday, I hope also that Ireland and the Irish government can push for a solution to the issue of conflict minerals, because this is what actually fuels the conflict in the eastern parts of the Congo. We carry, all of us, a part of Congo in our pockets because coltan is used in our mobile phones and almost all electronic and electrical equipment. And this is only to be found, almost only to be found in the DRC. And through control of these mines and the conflict minerals, these activities and these fights can continue. This is how it fuels the ongoing conflict and helps the armed groups to pay for weapons and their activities. So this is another thing where we have to make sure that we also stop one of the root causes to this conflict. I think the Americans have showed the way by adopting already legislation, making sure that there is a mapping of these conflict minerals and also obliging producers and importers of these conflict minerals to ask the questions, where do they come from? And hopefully we will have a system of certifying these conflict minerals. So this is where I think you can definitely contribute. Thank you for listening to me, and good luck with your plans.